There is a special kind of silence that lives in early Saturday mornings, the kind that arrives before the sun fully stretches across the sky and before the world remembers its noise. It is the quiet hum of a house waking up, the soft creak of wooden floors, the smell of fresh coffee drifting through hallways, and the distant sound of a lawnmower starting somewhere down the street. For many people, this silence once carried a signal, a message that did not need to be spoken out loud. It meant the day was not meant for sleeping late or escaping responsibility. It meant chores were waiting. Long before smartphones, endless scrolling, and busy digital lives, Saturday mornings belonged to simple tasks that quietly shape strong character. You might remember the feeling of dragging your feet toward the kitchen still half asleep, only to find a handwritten list resting on the counter like a silent contract. It did not shout or demand, but it carried weight. Wash the dishes, mow the lawn, clean the garage, fold the laundry, sweep the porch. Each task seemed small, almost unimportant at first glance, yet hidden beneath those simple words was something far more powerful than any school lesson. These chores were never really about spotless floors or perfectly trimmed grass. They were about discipline, responsibility, and learning that comfort is not the starting point of growth. In those quiet hours, something deeper was happening inside young hearts and minds. Every scrubbed plate and every bag of trash carried outside became a quiet promise to the future. It was proof that effort mattered, that contribution mattered, and that being part of a family meant carrying a share of the load. This is the wisdom often shared in the reflections inspired by Dr. Grandpa Henry, the reminder that greatness rarely begins in grand moments. It begins in the ordinary, in the unnoticed corners of everyday life where habits quietly form. Think about the rhythm of those mornings, the sun rising slowly as the smell of soap filled the kitchen sink, the steady hum of a vacuum cleaner moving across the living room carpet, the satisfying snap of a trash bag tied and carried out to the curb. At the time, it felt like work that never ended. But looking back, it becomes clear that those mornings were never wasted. They were building something invisible yet permanent. They were building patience, teaching persistence, and whispering a truth that many people only understand years later. Responsibility is not a burden. It is a training ground for confidence. Without realizing it, those Saturday mornings planted seeds that would grow into resilience during life's hardest seasons. And while children often counted the minutes until chores were finished, life was quietly counting the lessons that would last forever. There was always a moment in the middle of those mornings when time seemed to slow down, when the excitement of finishing chores felt far away, and the weight of the work suddenly felt heavier than expected. The sun would be higher in the sky, the air warmer, and the energy that once filled the morning would begin to fade. This was the moment when motivation disappeared, and excuses quietly began to whisper. The dishes seemed endless, the yard looked bigger than before, and the list on the counter somehow felt longer than it had an hour ago. It was in this quiet stretch of time that the real lesson began, the part no one ever talked about but everyone experienced. This was the moment of resistance, the silent battle between comfort and commitment. Many people remember wanting to quit right here, wanting to step away and promise to finish later, hoping no one would notice. Yet something deeper always pushed forward. Maybe it was the thought of pride, maybe it was the expectation of family, or maybe it was the quiet realization that quitting would feel worse than continuing. This turning point, though small and ordinary, held a powerful truth about life itself. The hardest part of any responsibility is not starting. The hardest part is continuing when the excitement disappears. That is the moment where character quietly forms, not in celebration or reward, but in persistence. Reflections inspired by Dr. Grandpa Henry often describe this exact space as the hidden classroom of life, the place where discipline is no longer guided by supervision, but by personal choice. In that long stretch of late morning, when the world outside seemed full of freedom and play, finishing the task became a personal decision rather than a forced one. The vacuum kept moving across the carpet, the lawnmower kept circling the yard, the dust cloth kept wiping shelves that no one else might even notice. Each small action became a quiet declaration of commitment. Yet this is also where the suspense of the story begins, Because what felt like an ordinary morning was quietly preparing something far bigger than anyone could see. Those moments of choosing effort over comfort were building a mindset that would one day face challenges far beyond household chores. Life would eventually present deadlines, responsibilities, setbacks, and unexpected obstacles that could not be avoided or postponed. And in those future moments, the memory of finishing a chore despite the urge to quit would echo quietly in the background. The lesson would return like a familiar voice saying, "Keep going, even when no one is watching." What once felt like a simple Saturday task was secretly preparing a lifelong habit of perseverance, a habit that would become priceless when life demanded strength. Years later, the memory of those Saturday mornings begins to feel different, almost like opening a time capsule filled with lessons that were hidden in plain sight. The sound of a lawnmower becomes a reminder of discipline. The scent of clean laundry feels like the fragrance of responsibility. The image of a neatly made bed becomes a quiet symbol of self-respect. What once felt like small obligations slowly reveals itself as the foundation of independence and pride. Adulthood arrives with bills, deadlines, and expectations that no one else can carry. And suddenly, the connection becomes clear. Those early routines were never just chores, they were training for life. The ability to show up, to finish what was started, and to take ownership of everyday responsibilities becomes one of the greatest advantages a person can carry into the future. Reflections, inspired by Dr. Grandpa Henry, often return to this simple truth. The habits we resist in youth often become the strengths we rely on later. The discipline that once felt forced becomes the discipline that creates freedom. The teamwork learned at home becomes the cooperation that builds careers and relationships. The pride once felt after a clean room becomes the confidence that grows after completing meaningful work. It is a powerful realization that the smallest routines can shape the strongest foundations. Imagine how different life feels when responsibility is no longer seen as a burden, but as a source of pride. Imagine waking up with the same quiet determination that once guided those early mornings, now applied to goals, dreams, and ambitions. This is the hidden reward of those simple Saturdays. They quietly planted the belief that effort leads to progress and that consistency creates transformation. Every small task completed becomes a vote for the person someone is becoming. Every promise kept, even a promise to sweep a floor or take out the trash, becomes proof of reliability and integrity. These are the qualities that build trust, create opportunities, and open doors that talent alone cannot unlock. The lesson is timeless and beautifully simple. Greatness does not begin with extraordinary actions. It begins with ordinary responsibilities done consistently and done well. The same mindset that once tackled weekend chores can shape healthier habits, stronger relationships, and bigger achievements. It all begins with a single decision to take ownership of the small things today. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.